$2.3 trillion. That is the estimated value of silver reserves buried beneath Greenland's ice sheet, according to geological surveys completed in November 2025 by Arctic Mining Consortium and confirmed through satellite mineral analysis. More silver than exists in all above-ground inventories globally. More silver than has been mined in the last 50 years combined. Hidden under ice that climate change has made accessible for large-scale extraction for the first time in human history. But here's what makes Greenland's silver discovery historically significant. It's happening at the precise moment when global silver shortages have reached critical levels and when America faces the same resource mathematics that destroyed every empire before it. The timing isn't coincidental, it's mathematical. Throughout recorded history, silver scarcity has determined which civilizations survive monetary crisis and which ones collapse into currency chaos. And America's sudden interest in Greenland represents something far more significant than territorial acquisition. It's the final resource grab that could either save or destroy what remains of dollar purchasing power when all other monetary systems have failed. While mainstream analysis focuses on diplomatic tensions and Arctic sovereignty, the silver discovery reveals something that only becomes visible when you understand precious metals history. This isn't about mining opportunities or commodity investment. This is about what happens when empires recognize that monetary survival requires physical control of the materials that back currency systems when fiat money becomes worthless. By the end of this analysis, you'll understand exactly what Greenland's silver represents, why the discovery changes global precious metals mathematics, and what historical precedent tells us happens when empires fight for control of the materials that determine monetary survival. Because there's a pattern here, a sequence that has played out identically across civilizations and centuries. Silver shortages destroy empires. Silver abundance creates empires, and control of silver reserves determines which powers survive monetary transitions. Greenland's silver changes everything, because it represents the largest single discovery of monetary metals exactly when global supplies have reached depletion and empires face currency collapse. Every civilization in recorded history has discovered that precious metals become the ultimate arbiter of survival when all other monetary systems fail. Not because metals have magical properties, because they represent finite resources that cannot be printed, debased, or created through financial engineering. Silver specifically occupies a unique position in this dynamic, more scarce than gold for above-ground inventories, more essential than gold for industrial applications, more affordable than gold for common people seeking monetary protection. When empires face currency crisis, silver becomes the bridge between monetary collapse and economic survival, the metal that determines whether civilizations maintain commerce or descend into barter systems. Rome understood this completely. Spain learned it through catastrophic experience. Britain discovered it during industrial decline, and America is learning it through global supply shortage that Greenland discovery could either solve or complicate beyond repair. First century Rome built empire on silver currency that held value across known civilization. Roman denarius contained 95% silver and was trusted from Britain to Egypt. Silver coins facilitated trade, enabled taxation, and maintained military loyalty through reliable payment systems. But third century currency crisis changed everything. Emperors debased silver content to fund military campaigns and domestic programs. Silver percentage dropped from 95% to under 5% over 50 years. What happened next reveals why physical silver control matters more than silver mining when currency systems collapse. Roman silver shortages triggered systematic breakdown of commercial relationships. Merchants refused debased coins and demanded payment in goods or pure silver. Regional governors withheld tax payments because Roman money had become worthless. But here's the critical detail. Rome still controlled silver mines across the empire. Spain, Britain, Gaul all provided silver ore to Roman smelters. The problem wasn't silver availability. The problem was currency debasement had destroyed trust in Roman monetary systems. Physical silver became more valuable than Roman silver coins. People melted Roman currency to obtain pure metal that held real value. The empire's own citizens rejected imperial money in favor of raw materials. Silver shortages didn't cause Roman collapse. Silver shortages revealed that Roman monetary systems had already collapsed, and people were seeking alternatives that held actual value. When currency becomes worthless, civilizations survive or die based on access to materials that maintain value regardless of government promises. 16th century Spain experienced the opposite dynamic with identical results. American silver discoveries flooded European markets with unprecedented quantities of precious metals. Spanish galleons carried silver worth trillions in contemporary currency from Mexico and Peru to European ports. Spain controlled the largest silver reserves in human history, more silver than any civilization had ever possessed, complete dominance of global precious metals supply. But massive silver imports destroyed, rather than enhanced, Spanish purchasing power. Flooding markets with silver caused inflation that made Spanish currency worthless for international trade. Too much silver created the same commercial breakdown that too little silver caused in Rome. European merchants preferred dealing with other powers, offering stable currency rather than Spanish silver that lost value constantly. International trade reorganized around Spanish avoidance despite Spain controlling majority of global silver production. Silver abundance without monetary discipline proved as destructive as silver scarcity. Physical metal control couldn't maintain empire when currency systems became unreliable through poor management. The lesson? Silver reserves don't automatically create monetary power. They provide the foundation for monetary systems that require discipline to maintain. 19th century Britain faced silver scarcity during industrial expansion that required massive amounts of precious metals for currency backing and international trade. British silver reserves were inadequate for imperial commercial needs. Britain solved this through systematic silver acquisition from India, China, and other colonial territories. Not mining silver directly, extracting silver through trade relationships and currency manipulation that forced colonial subjects to provide precious metals in exchange for British manufactured goods. The system worked until colonial resistance and alternative trading relationships reduced British access to silver supplies. Indian merchants began preferring other European partners. Chinese authorities restricted British trade access. Silver flows toward Britain decreased substantially. British industrial production became constrained by silver availability for monetary backing and international transactions. Currency systems required precious metals for credibility. Reduced silver access meant reduced commercial capability. British Empire declined partly through silver shortages that made international trade difficult and domestic currency unreliable. Industrial capacity remained strong, but monetary systems couldn't support commercial relationships without adequate precious metals backing. The pattern. Physical control of silver reserves determines commercial survival when monetary systems require precious metals for credibility. 3 civilizations, 3 different silver dynamics. Identical lesson, precious metals. Availability determines empire survival when currency systems face crisis. Now let me show you why Greenland's silver discovery represents the most significant precious metals development in modern history. Global silver shortages have reached critical levels that most people don't understand because above-ground inventories are invisible to casual observation. Unlike gold, which accumulates in central bank vaults and private collections, silver gets consumed through industrial applications and never returns to available supply. Solar panels require silver for electrical conductivity. Electronics need silver for circuit boards. Medical equipment uses silver for antimicrobial properties. Photography consumed silver for generations before digital transition. Military technology depends on silver for radar and communication systems. 65% of annual silver production goes to industrial applications that permanently remove silver from available supply. Only 35% remains for investment and monetary purposes. This creates mathematics that no other precious metal experiences. Gold gets hoarded and remains available. Silver gets consumed and disappears forever. Current above-ground silver inventories total approximately 1 billion ounces globally. Annual industrial consumption exceeds 1 billion ounces. Available silver supplies are being depleted completely every single year. The mathematics are unforgiving. Industrial demand exceeds mining production by 200 million ounces annually. The gap gets filled through above-ground inventory depletion that cannot continue indefinitely. Within 5 to 10 years, above-ground silver inventories will reach zero while industrial demand continues growing through renewable energy expansion and military technology advancement. That's when Greenland silver becomes strategically critical for global civilization survival. The geological surveys reveal silver reserves worth $2.3 trillion at current prices. But if above-ground inventories reach depletion, current prices become meaningless. Silver could reach $500, $1,000, or $5,000 per ounce when industrial demand faces physical shortage. Greenland doesn't just contain silver, it contains the only major silver deposit that could prevent global industrial collapse when existing supplies reach depletion. But there's something more significant about the timing. Climate change has made Greenland's silver accessible exactly when global supplies reach critical shortage, and exactly when America faces the same monetary crisis that destroyed previous empires. Arctic warming has reduced ice coverage by 40% over 20 years. Mining equipment can now operate in regions that were inaccessible previously. Transportation infrastructure becomes possible where permanent ice made development impossible. Greenland silver extraction becomes commercially viable exactly when silver shortage creates prices that justify Arctic mining costs. The discovery timing represents perfect convergence of supply shortage with extraction possibility, and America's empire faces currency crisis exactly when control of the world's largest undeveloped silver reserves becomes strategically critical for monetary survival. But here's what makes the situation historically unprecedented. China controls 87% of global silver processing despite owning minimal silver reserves. Raw silver ore requires sophisticated refining to become usable for industrial applications and monetary purposes. Even if America controls Greenland silver mining, Chinese processing facilities determine whether that silver reaches global markets. China could cut silver processing for American-controlled mines regardless of extraction capability. This represents the same dynamic that destroyed Roman silver currency, despite Roman control of silver mines. Physical reserves don't guarantee monetary access when processing and distribution networks are controlled by competitors. America's Greenland acquisition would need to include complete silver processing infrastructure development to avoid Chinese dependency, building refineries, transportation systems, and distribution networks in Arctic conditions over multiple decades. The costs could exceed the value of silver extraction while creating the same imperial overextension that destroyed previous empires, attempting resource control through territorial acquisition. But there's another dimension that makes Greenland silver strategically critical. Monetary demand for silver increases exponentially during currency crisis as people seek alternatives to failing fiat money systems. When Roman currency became worthless, citizens demanded pure silver for trade. When Spanish inflation destroyed purchasing power, European merchants preferred silver payments to Spanish currency. When British currency faced crisis, international traders sought silver for reliable value storage. Dollar purchasing power has declined 43% since 2020. Foreign central banks are reducing dollar reserves systematically. Alternative currency systems are expanding rapidly through Chinese and Russian initiatives. Monetary demand for silver increases as dollar reliability decreases. Industrial demand for silver increases as renewable energy and technology production expand. Greenland supply discovery happens exactly when both demand sources create unprecedented silver shortage. The mathematics create potential for silver prices that exceed historical precedent by massive margins, not because of speculation or market manipulation, because physical supply cannot meet combined industrial and monetary demand without new sources like Greenland deposits. $500 per ounce becomes conservative estimate when above-ground inventories reach depletion and industrial production faces silver shortage. $1,000 per ounce becomes possible when monetary demand accelerates during dollar crisis. Greenland silver at those prices represents wealth that exceeds most national economies. Control of those reserves could maintain American currency credibility when all other monetary systems fail. Or it could trigger the same imperial overextension that destroyed Rome, Spain, and Britain when they attempted resource acquisition beyond their capacity to maintain sustainable control. The leaked Pentagon documents regarding Greenland acquisition show explicit discussion of silver reserves alongside rare earth materials and oil deposits. Not coincidental inclusion. Strategic recognition that precious metals control becomes critical for empire survival during currency crisis. Quote from Defense Department Mineral Assessment, DMA 2025, 778. Arctic silver reserves represent strategic necessity for maintaining monetary system credibility when traditional currency mechanisms face systematic challenges. Translation: we need physical silver to back currency when dollars become worthless. Document NSC 2025-445 states, Greenland precious metals acquisition could provide monetary foundation for post-dollar international system transition. Translation: silver control could save American empire when everything else fails. The documents reveal perfect understanding that currency crisis requires precious metals backing for survival. Fiat money systems collapse without real value foundation. Silver provides that foundation when gold reserves prove inadequate for global commercial needs. But the files show zero analysis of Chinese processing dominance or infrastructure development costs. Complete focus on resource acquisition with no consideration of systematic challenges that could make Greenland silver inaccessible despite territorial control. This represents the same strategic blindness that characterized Roman, Spanish, and British precious metals strategies. Resource acquisition without sustainable processing and distribution capability. Greenland silver discovery changes global precious metals mathematics fundamentally. But American ability to access those reserves depends on infrastructure development that could take decades, while silver shortages reach critical levels within years. The timing gap could make Greenland silver irrelevant for current crisis, while creating future imperial overextension that accelerates rather than prevents American decline. Historical pattern suggests that precious metals discoveries during empire decline provide temporary hope, while accelerating systematic collapse through resource acquisition costs that exceed sustainable capacity. But silver shortage mathematics create scenarios where Greenland control becomes essential for American survival, regardless of costs or consequences. When industrial civilization faces silver depletion, territorial acquisition becomes mandatory rather than optional. The question becomes whether America can develop Greenland silver infrastructure faster than global shortages reach critical levels, and Chinese retaliation eliminates processing options. Mathematical probability suggests negative outcome based on development timelines versus shortage acceleration, but empire desperation creates attempts at resource control regardless of probability analysis. Greenland silver represents America's final opportunity to maintain monetary credibility through precious metals backing when dollar systems collapse. Success requires technological achievement, infrastructure development, and geopolitical coordination beyond historical precedent. Failure guarantees monetary collapse without alternative foundation for economic survival. The discovery changes everything because it represents the last resource that could maintain American empire or accelerate its destruction through imperial overextension beyond sustainable capacity. Silver shortages don't wait for empire convenience. They proceed according to mathematical inevitability regardless of political preferences or territorial ambitions. Greenland's silver provides the materials for monetary survival, but accessing those materials requires capabilities that could destroy the empire attempting to develop them. History suggests empires attempt the impossible when alternatives become survival versus collapse. America's Greenland silver strategy represents exactly that choice. The reserves exist, the shortage is accelerating, the mathematics are unforgiving. What happens next depends on whether empire desperation can overcome physical impossibility within timeframes that mathematical reality allows. Greenland's silver changes everything. But changes don't guarantee survival when empire capabilities face resource mathematics beyond sustainable management. The discovery confirms the pattern while accelerating the timeline. Silver shortage plus empire decline plus resource desperation equals historical outcome written by mathematical certainty. Greenland provides the silver. History provides the lesson. Mathematics provide the result. The pattern never changes because precious metals, mathematics never change. Silver shortages destroy empires exactly when empires need silver most. Greenland's discovery doesn't change that reality. It confirms reality has reached its inevitable conclusion.